That's right.
Probe. It's a major development in the investigation amid the midterm elections, which of course are now only 2 months away. And sources tell CNN that those who were served those subpoenas are among Trump's top advisors and allies. That includes Brian Jack, Trump's former White House political director, and his former deputy chief of staff, Dan Scavino, as well as his campaign manager, Bill Stepien. Evan Perez is out front. And Evan, finding out about more than 30 subpoenas in just a few days, that's a lot. What do you know about them?
Well, that's right, Aaron. I think what this signifies is really an intensification of the Justice Department investigation. All of these subpoenas coming in just in the past week or so. It appears to be an effort by prosecutors to get ahead of the quiet period. It's a 60-day period during which the Justice Department generally tries to do any overt steps that...
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Lawyers for former President Trump are defending a federal judge's order preventing the Justice Department from reviewing classified documents seized at Mar-a-Lago. They submitted a court filing earlier today condemning the investigation of Mr. Trump as, quote, unprecedented and misguided.
The filing argues against the Justice Department's motion to allow officials to continue investigating more than 100 classified government records as they appeal.
Now I agree with Rush. I'm too stupid to make up my own mind.
15 minutes later.
Let's turn to Tulsi Gabbard, former presidential candidate and Hawaii Congresswoman. All right, Tulsi, I did not see this coming on the anniversary of 9/11. Can you believe that they just casually sprinkle in January 6th and say that Trump voters are worse than Al-Qaeda? Where do we end up at this point from here?
Jesse, I feel sick right now. Seeing you play these different clips, I, like so many of my fellow service members, I enlisted because of those jihadist attacks on 9/11 to support and defend our Constitution, to protect our fellow Americans, and to go after and kill those who attacked us on that day. And it is despicable and outrageous to hear these people say the things that they're saying, comparing our fellow Americans to terrorists. Actually worse. They literally said they are worse than Al-Qaeda terrorists. This just shows how far they are willing to go, pushing our country to the brink of civil war, demonizing, targeting our fellow Americans as worse than Al-Qaeda terrorists.
Eventually.
We want to turn now to some breaking news. CBS News has learned that a federal grand jury investigation into the origins of the January 6th attack and the efforts to overturn the 2020 election is growing to include more aides from former President Trump's inner circle. CBS's Scott MacFarlane is in Washington with all these new details. Good evening, Scott.
Nora, good evening. Multiple sources tell CBS News more than 30 people associated with former President Donald Trump have now received federal grand jury subpoenas, some as recently as last week. It's a significant escalation from a grand jury here in Washington.
How dare you!
To overturn the 2020 election, Rudy Giuliani is now the target of the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney's investigation into election interference. He's been notified that he's a target of that criminal probe by the District Attorney's office. That investigation in Fulton County may also be widening to include another Trump coup lawyer, Sidney Powell, who's now facing scrutiny for her role in an alleged scheme to steal election data. Remember, she hired that firm that went into one county's election offices and apparently took a bunch of data. The Department of Justice has also seized cell phones from John Eastman, that's the coup lawyer I mentioned a moment ago, and Jeffrey Clark, former Trump DOJ official, as part of its investigation into the attempted coup and the insurrection that followed. That DOJ investigation is running parallel to the House committee investigating January 6th, which is now set to resume its public hearings later this month. The committee reportedly considering whether to request testimony from Mike Pence or even from Trump himself. While the committee cannot bring criminal charges itself, it can make referrals to and share information with the DOJ, which has already demonstrated it is following the committee's findings closely.
This is how legends are